Slides on? Cool. All right, well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for all showing up. It's awesome to see so many people here. Now, before I get started, I have to actually take a picture of you guys, so we'll smile. Because otherwise my mom is never going to believe this. So, thank you very much. About me. Yeah, well, you already know who I am. This is me with sunglasses. It's important to know that I work at Cloud9. We build an IDE, like you can do very good JavaScript development with it. And I work there actually as a Node contributor, so I don't directly work on Cloud9 as a product. But it will come back in this talk, so it's good to know. Like, for example, one thing like my coworkers always ask me is like, when are you finally going to release Node 1.0? Like people have been asking this like for 2 years now, I suppose. So I get used to it. And it was funny. I think in June we released 0.8, and then people were like, "Ha! Now you can't get back. Now you can't go back. You have to release 0.1 after 0.8." But no, we're not going to do. We're going to release 0.10. And there's reasons for that, and I'm going to show you a little bit what are the reasons for that. And after that, show you how we are approaching to solve these problems. So one of the things we told you to do is to use streams in Node, and I suppose everybody did and knows sort of how it works. And streams are awesome. They're like duplet blocks. You can click them together and everything works. Except maybe not. Let's look at these statements. There are 4 statements. So I see a guy down here taking notes. Don't do that just yet, because they may be false. And I want to know from all you guys. Like, let's start with the first statement. That the TCP streams will all emit end after an error happens. I want to know like who thinks this is true. I can't see you guys very well, but nobody really thinks this is true. Okay, all streams will emit close eventually at some point. Who thinks this is true? Well, a couple of people. Who thinks this is false? This is like totally wrong. And who didn't raise their hand yet? Okay, I see. All right. Like only the third statement is only readable streams will emit the end event at some point. Who thinks this is true? There's more hands coming. I think more people there now. That's good. And the last question is like you can write to a stream, right? You can, and it will return some value which indicates like can I write more, or maybe I should back off now. If it returns 0, is that a good point to back off or not? Who thinks this is true? Oh, also a couple of people. Okay, well, that's very interesting. Like, okay, who here never raised their hands? Well, congratulations. I have a smart audience because all these statements are actually wrong. But this is, for many people, this is actually very confusing. For example, the first, like, this is something my coworkers keep asking me, like, yeah, I want to do error handling right. And now I have this stream, but if it errors, will I still get the end event? And like nobody seems to know this. And the answer is, it's not true. The close event will eventually come in most cases, but then there are some exceptions. For example, if you do an outgoing HTTP message, like the third one, that only readable streams emit end, that's sort of supposed to be true, but then at some point somebody came and said like, this like outgoing HTTP message, maybe it should do end as well, and now everything is fucked up. The third thing is well, when write returns false, then you should stop writing. But due to like some weird twist of history, like it's not false values, it should actually return false, and only then you should stop writing. It's weird. I will come back to this later. More stuff about streams. This is some weird piece of code that I found in our code base. Some guy thought, pause is not working. And he's right, it's not always working. So that's a problem. And in this case, he just didn't get it. So this, like, pause is very confusing for people. So this was only related to streams so far. For example, another thing is, you are supposed to handle errors. In Node, the problem is, like, you're your program crashes when you don't handle errors. So, like people do actually attach error handlers, and then they're like, oh shit, now I have to clean up all the mess I made, and well, put a fix me there and go on with your life. That's not how you should do it, but we are to blame for that because we made it too hard. Another interesting thing, we told you guys, use NPM, publish your packages, it's awesome. So we did at Cloud9, we use NPM a lot. This morning I logged into one of our production servers. Yeah, you can do that when you work at the startup. And like I entered npm ls and it shows all the packages that we use. So, well, here it goes. Like, as you can see, we use quite a lot. Oh, there's some more, maybe some. Oh, how many slides do I have? Oh, there's the end. Cool. And that's like, this gets somewhat unwieldy. And if you look closely, I'm not going to go back to them because I can't find the end anymore, but like you will see that there's like 10 versions of Connect in there, and like other popular frameworks, they are duplicated all over the place. And the problem is like, these are not rock solid, this is not rock solid stuff that has been like churned on by Sun for a decade. Like many of these packages actually have bugs, and like you have to like sort of know all of them to actually create a stable service. So here's another problem with Node, and this should actually improve, I think, before we release a 1.0. Okay, a last thing that I'm going to mention, and after that we go to the next stage. Like, people want security. If you like write something where you process like secret data or sensitive stuff, then people want you to encrypt it. But in Node, it's really not that good. I mean, TLS, like the HTTPS, for example, is very slow, and crypto has very awkward APIs. Like, look, if you look at this code that I pasted here, that's the way to, for example, hash and calculate the MD5 hash of a file. And well, there's some very weird stuff in here. For example, you're supposed to use like, oh, this is not working, I think. Let me see if it works now. No. Well, you see the two-string binary there? That's like, if you actually know how that works, it's the pinnacle of insanity. It's because what we will do is like we have this nice buffer of data in memory, and then we will convert it to a string. And you've seen the talk on Unicode in JavaScript. It means that we have to actually represent like bytes as 2-byte values, because otherwise JavaScript can't handle it. It's terrible and it's super slow. So like this is also stuff that really needs to be fixed. So in the rest of this talk, I will actually show you two particular solutions that we have been working on in the past or working on right now to solve specific problems. So the first one is I'm going to talk about is domains. Domains is something that to make error handling easier for you. Like, let's compare PHP with Node. And as you can see here, like if you would put this statement in like a PHP file, your website would just keep working. Only if you go to like a particular URL with this error in there because that file does not exist, then yeah, you will get an error, easy. That's not how it works in Node. Like in Node, if you create read stream somewhere and you pick a file that does not exist, then it's a mess. I mean, your process crashes. Everybody who's connected will get a connection reset error in your browser. It's bad. And the reason that PHP can do this, obviously, is because it starts a new process or whatever. It does something special if you use mod PHP. And it knows actually what belongs together, but everything is tied to a particular HTTP request, so it can just clean it up if it fails, and all the other stuff keeps working. But in Node doesn't really know what you're doing, and it doesn't understand that something is related to a particular HTTP request. It's just like a sequence of events that happens. So this makes it very hard to solve this in a similar way as PHP does, but we actually wanted to. So what we did is we said like, well, let's create boxes. You can like do different, like you can enter a box, do different things, and when it like blows up, we know what to clean up because you put it all in the box. And this is called a domain. So I'm going to explain a little bit how this works. First of all, what you want to do is like actually create a domain. That's what you do here. That's the easy part. And then you say like domain, the D is here, the domain object, and you say run. And then everything you specify in the callback will be like running in that box. So if you, for example, what we do here is we create a connection, and we create this, we open a file and to write to, and we set a timeout actually. And all this stuff, I mean, somewhere something might go wrong, and if the timeout triggers actually, something will definitely go wrong, because throwing normally will kill your process in this situation. But what we do is, because we put it all in the box, we can say, okay, we can attach like a global error handler to everything in the box, and well, then say dispose. And dispose is like the black magic here. Dispose actually knows what to clean up, and because it tracks all these things that you're doing, and for example, it will cancel the timeout if it didn't fire yet. It will close your file. It will dispose your connection. It's super awesome. The funny thing is, nobody so far seems to understand how it works. I mean, I've not seen many people actually use it. So, but this is the idea, and I think, like, with this in mind, you can actually use it pretty easily. There's something more I have to show you about this. If you create, sometimes you don't want to implicitly add stuff to a box. For example, I could create a domain around your server here. Here you're starting an HTTP server for the people not so familiar with Node. But yeah, what would happen is every connection would enter the same box as the server is in. So everything is suddenly tied together again. And you don't want this in this case, so what you can do is just create a new domain as soon as a connection comes in, and then like add some stuff that you got, like your request and your response object. And after that, set up the error handling and do all the dangerous stuff within the box. Very easy. If you go to our documentation website, actually there's more elaborate examples, and it's very useful. Go take a look. So it works. Well, it works for built-in event emitters, for example, streams and timers and that kind of stuff. They can automatically add themselves to the box, basically, for HTTP requests and responses, for stuff you do with set interval, for low-level I/O functions like, I don't know, fs.write and dns.resolve. Basically, everything that's built into Node works fine. It gets a little more difficult if you use external NPM modules, so that may be the reason that not everybody is using this. But like, suppose you maintain your own NPM module, but many people do because there are so many of them. You have to think about this and propagate a domain. For example, this is like this would be a very unuseful module. And what it does is you can enqueue a callback. You can say, okay, run this in the future, and then every second a timer will go off, and we will call everything that has been queued so far. Like something that Substack would write is like totally pointless. The problem here is that whenever you push your function into this queue, then like the user probably expects it to be implicitly added to the domain, but that doesn't work. Like, because eventually the function will be called by the set interval callback, and that's not in the domain here. So how would we do this? Well, for example, what you could do is, now you can see I slightly changed the code. At the top, we added a domain. We created a domain. And then whenever, we don't create a domain. We just load the domain module. My bad. And then what we do whenever people want to enqueue a function is we bind it to the domain that's active at that time. And then whenever you call it, it will like restore the user's domain. So that's something, like, if you know how domains work, it's actually not that hard to make your module domain aware, but you have to do some work to make it. Okay, let's go to that was the documentation stuff. Let's go to the streams work that we're doing. As you saw, like, I have some problems with streams. They're still awesome, but there are some problems with that. And the problems were like, pause is unreliable. This whole push model for data, like where we emit data events, is not very practical. The emitted events are very inconsistent, and implementing your own stream, I didn't really mention that so far, but that's like way too hard, because you have to know all these events, do everything like properly, and return false and not 0 if you mean people to stop writing to your stream. That's all way too hard. So we decided let's have another take on this. Like let's rethink everything. And what we came up with is like we want to change the way you read from a push model where we emit data to a way where you pull data out of a stream. But how do you know there is data? Well, what we do is emit a readable event, and then you basically know there is data available, and then you have to still pull it. So if you don't feel like reading data at that point, you can just ignore it and pull it later. We think this is much better. And also, like there's suddenly some symmetry in the API. Look at this. If you call write, then Node will like write your data, and it will also say like maybe stop writing, and then you have to wait for a particular event. And now suddenly, when you read, Node will tell you, well, there is no data, but you can wait for an event, and after that you can read again. So it's like there's much more symmetry in the API like this. It has another advantage. Sometimes you want to implement a binary protocol. I mean, I don't know if you guys do that, but I have to often. And then you need, for example, 4 bytes of a socket. And you can do that. Like Node will now give you just like as much as it has, like a big buffer with a lot of stuff in there. So what we now do is you can specify how much you want, and we won't give you more. So that's just much easier, although it's a very simple change. So like what does it look like? Just to rehash this a little bit. There is, suppose you are creating a server and a connection comes in. You're going to pull data out of this connection, and you're going to do that by just like calling connection.read, and as long as it returns something, then you can use it. And after that, like wait for the readable event, and when it's readable again, go to that function again. Very easy. Then the nice thing now is suddenly you will not miss any data if you start reading only after a second. It doesn't matter. I think for many people this is much more awesome, and all the bullshit that I showed you, like this pause buffering stuff, like I can't go back so far because I have to skip over all my npm modules. The bullshit where people implement their own buffering, that's no longer necessary. Implementing your own streams also got much easier. Until now, what you would have to do to implement your own stream is just implement it your own. You're on your own, implement all the methods, emit all the events, do it right, and we're going to help you by that. So we have stream base class. It has, and you are responsible for defining 2 functions on it, an underscore read and an underscore write. And these functions work a little different than the public API. They are asynchronous. Node will call your function and say like, I will want 4, and it will supply you with a callback that you have to call when you actually have this data. And like our streams base class will manage all the stuff to actually give you a proper streams API. There's more goodies. For example, transforms. There's many cases right now where like streams until now were sort of only used for I/O, for sockets, for files, for HTTP requests. But people want to do like zlib, which is just like some transformation. They want to do cryptography, and which is also just like data churning away in memory. For that, we added a transform class. And basically, if you implement this method, you will the Node will also set up a stream for you. Which is both readable and writable, and you define like the function that transforms data into its other form. It gives you 2 callbacks. It gives you buff first. By the way, it's important. That's the data you're supposed to start working on. It gives you 2 callbacks. One that you have to call every time you have a little bit of data created, and then another callback that you have to call when you're done with this buffer. Well, very easy. So, for example, a pass-through stream, like very simple, immediately emit whatever you just got, and then call done. And all the other stuff is not really important. So, extra goodies are in here. For example, I showed you the MD5 hashing, that it was not the API was a bit weird. And now you can just create a stream, or actually the hash function is now a stream, and you can pipe data into it like you do with streams. And then when it becomes readable, because it's also a readable stream, you can read the hash back. So suddenly this becomes very convenient. Yeah, there's some event sanity to still do. Like we already decided that, for example, all writable streams should emit finish at some point, and we have to solve the same problem for readable streams. We're not really decided on that yet. But I mean, yeah, 0.1 is not there, so there's time to think about this, just so you know what we're doing. And now there might be a final question, like there's people here that, oh, what's going to happen with my module? Do I have to rewrite all this stuff? No, you don't. Like we added an emulation layer. Actually, Isaac, like the boss of the Node team, sort of, added an emulation layer that makes it, whatever you have now, keeps working. And this is just to make your life easier if you write a new module. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions?